What's up, everybody? This is Drunk Black History. I'm your boy, Brandon Collins, and with me for our first rebooted episode, an incredible guest. So excited to have him on. DJ BenHaMeen, how you doing, bro?
I'm doing great. I did not realize that this is your first rebooted episode, so this is quite an honor. So thank you very much.
Absolutely, man. You know what's dope is like you and I have known each other for quite some time, like a few years.
Yeah.
Right? And like I've just like met
pre-COVID.
You. Yeah, pre-COVID.
Yeah, definitely pre-COVID.
And it's wild because like you randomly will come into my life. Like I could be like just hanging out and I'll see you, or like I'll be after like a Marvel screening. I'll see you on the train. We could talk shit about Ant-Man 3.
Wow.
Because remember we shared that trauma together. We were the only people for a few days that knew how bad Ant-Man 3 was before the world discovered.
It's like the negative version of when I saw Black Panther the first time. Like when I saw Black Panther the first time, it was like 2 weeks before most people saw it. So I had to sit there and hold it like, yo, this fucking movie, you know, for like 2 weeks. And then, when I saw Ant-Man, I just had to hold it like, yeah, this fucking movie for like 2 weeks.
Yeah, man, you became like my go-to, like talking shit about Marvel screenings, movies before, after screenings. Because I was like, when I saw the Marvels press screen, I'm like, pretty sure DJ BenHaMeen is here. And so I like messaged you. I was like, this movie was ass too, right? And you like, besides Tiana's ass, like this movie was ass. Like it was terrible. But it's I appreciate being able to talk to like another black person about like these movies, because sometimes you like we're surrounded by white people at these screenings, and it's hard to like be real, because we don't want to talk shit about the stuff in front of them, But,
I was just talking to my man DJ Low Key yesterday, and he just saw it like the day before, and he was ranting to me about how terrible it was, and so it just brought it all back for me. And then Honest Trailers dropped it yesterday, and
word?
Yeah, and I mean they dolled it too, and they were right. The only thing that's good about it is Iman Vellani and Tiana's,
Yep.
she's a beautiful woman,
But before we get to our subject, first I gotta cheers you up.
Okay, there we go.
History.
Thank you, sir.
Drinking Uncle Nearest whiskey, the finest of the whiskeys in my opinion.
I did not know. I've never had Uncle Nearest, but he's become quite dear to my heart in in a short time.
You mentioned whiskey is like your favorite, like
pretty much all I drink these days. Bullet, Doers, and when I'm really feeling like I'm living a good life, Macallan, right? Yeah,
that's when you feel like you made something. I had a productive week. I'm gonna celebrate.
Yeah, I'm gonna celebrate with the good stuff. So
okay.
But I'm barely drinking these days, so this is,
Was that just like a New Year's resolution, or you just like?
It's even been before New Year's. I DJ a lot, and that's but I'm DJ BenHaMeen, and when you're doing like 3 or 4 gigs a week and you're drinking at every one of them, that's not good. So I had to I just zeroed it out at work, and that pretty much stopped me from drinking anywhere else because that's all you're gonna get. So
got it. So tell me about your history, man. Like, what got you into like DJing? Like, because that's your moniker, right? So like, what started the love of music that then made it seem like I want to be the person that curates music for crowds and like.
Wow, that's a great question. And I was just talking about this. I've been doing a lot of talking on threads about DJing, and it was girls, straight up. And I really challenge any DJ, like, if it's not of the opposite, of someone you're attracted to. I think that drives a lot of DJs, at least it definitely did for me. I was in high school, and the DJ was setting up for the high school dance, and all of the girls I had crushes on were standing around him, watching him set up. And I was like, this dude ain't even playing music, and they're there. So I was like, I need this in my life.
Yeah.
And I already liked music. It wasn't a love then, but it was that. And then what really, because that made me interested. I'm seeing the girls. But it was, one night I was watching videos and DJ Premier in the DeWitt video, and he's cutting on the beach. Yeah. And once again, there's girls all around him. But he's cutting on the beach, and it's Greg, N-I-C-E. And I was just, it blew my mind. I'm just like, what? You can talk with your hands like that? That's fucking nuts. And, and then I find out Premier's from Houston. That's where I grew up at. And, like he worked at the record store I went to. I met him back then, all that type of stuff. And so it just became like I wanted to be Premier. That was it. That was my goal. That was life for me, was be, DJ Premier. and joined Digital Underground.
Wow, damn, man. And so,
as a background, just be in Digital Underground. I just wanted to be in the group.
That's what's up, man. Yeah. So you grew up in Houston. Were you like raised there too, or?
Yeah, I was born in unbelievably Cheyenne, Wyoming.
Okay.
And then we moved to Houston when I was like 3, and I was raised like I'm a Houstonian, Third Ward. Shot in any picture you see me, I'm always doing this, and people either think it's like white power, would be weird, or Kappas because Kappas do a similar thing, but it's Third Ward. That's why you always see me doing that in any picture.
They're like, that's the signal for Watchmen.
Yeah.
That's the eye.
It's always the tray. That's the tray for me. So yeah.
So what we like, what Drum Black History is about like black education and like educating folks about unsung black heroes or like events that haven't gotten their due, right? And so I like to ask people about their history growing up and like what you learn about black history, because Texas, as we all know, has a weird take on history. I mean, I've had black folk tell me, down here in Texas, they act like slavery was a choice. Like they just held up a help wanted sign and like black people came through.
It was different. Like Houston especially is different. To this day, it's different. And then growing up, in the 90s, especially when I was in high school, is different. Like it was openly racist. Like I had someone say nigger, to me in my face, referring to me while I was like 10 years old.
Jesus.
And I mean nonchalantly. Like this, I can say it now, it's still tough for me to say, but he was like, yeah, I don't know, these niggers keep coming in here while I'm standing right there.
Wow.
But he was a grown white man, and what was I going to do? Yeah. So that was Texas growing up. So it was different. It was like, I always tell people that, like people who grew up in New York, LA, they have a different view of America than people who grew up anywhere else pretty much, because America is different when you're outside of these two cities. It's a whole different thing. And Houston in the middle of it is different, but I had very militant parents who come from a very, pro-black background. My mom was city council, my dad, and then were involved in a case in Wyoming where they defended these students who were, involved in a racial case at university. My parents were in the thick of this shit. So we grew up like that, So we grew up with being raised by them and being educated by them. So even when the school wasn't doing it, we were doing it. And then both me and my sister went to Hampton, and then I followed and went to Howard. So, we were always about black history.
So they taught y'all. They were like, if the school ain't gonna do it,
we're going to do it. Very much so. And then we went, we grew up in a black church. We're surrounded by black people. Houston has that. Houston has a very black and very, Third Ward especially is like one of the oldest and historically black neighborhoods in the country, and that's to this day, and it's like there's a large middle class, that's like where Beyonce's parents are at and all that type of stuff, so it's been like that. So it's very black and very strong and very proud, of its history. Juneteenth is something we've been celebrating. That's not a new thing to me. This is from childhood.
How'd that feel when like Juneteenth became?
Honestly, whack, bro. Shout out to Janicia. That's my lover. Queen. I mean, Tiva.
I
Queen
feel bad.
And Jay.
I'm like one of those people that would say Juneteenth. We got started celebrating. Like
I love her, and we've had this discussion. When she was doing her Juneteenth parties, because I just didn't understand it at first. I was like, this is when the slaves got freed a year later. Like, even in Houston, when we used to get in the park and have drinks and celebrate. That was it. It wasn't a big thing like that. It was like, every Juneteenth we go to the park, chill out, have some drinks, maybe somebody perform, something like that. But it wasn't this huge thing, and it was just weird because now it's like you're celebrating that they played us, but...
do you understand why people, like, now, like, taking in choose to?
Not especially.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean... I guess they're celebrating the freedom.
I mean, I think people just like the day off now.
That works for me. I'll never forget. I can't remember what comedian who it was. Oh my God, I think it might have been rest in peace, Bebe's kids, Robin Harris. I think it might have been him, and he once said, "If the KKK get a national holiday, I'm drinking a beer and saying, well, thank you, Grand Wizard."
I'll cheers to that. R.I.P. to Robin Harris.
R.I.P. to Robin Harris, man. Oh my God.
Fucking Baby's kids.
That's one of the great. That tape is incredible. Like, he had that one special, but that's that's a special boy.
Yeah. But we're not talking about Robin Harris.
No.
Today we're talking about the great artist that is Jimi Hendrix. Now, the thing is, typically, I would prefer not to talk about like a mainstream person like Jimi Hendrix. But the thing is, when you brought him up, I realized, besides the name and like some of the iconic, you know, photographs and stuff like that, I actually don't know much about this man, this legend, right? And I know you have a history with him. You even have a graphic novel, you know, based on him. So, like, talk a little bit about your history with Jimi Hendrix and what drew you to this artist.
Okay, well, it goes back with me, like we were talking about before we recorded. I was at Howard University, and a friend of mine was doing. She was involved with. She didn't even go to Howard, but she was involved with doing this student film. I think the kid went to NYU actually, and they were shooting in Baltimore. And at the time, I had a giant afro, like akin to Jimmy. Like I looked like that right there. It was wild, curly, all that, hanging over my forehead. Exactly. Yeah, Jesus, I resemble that man. So yeah, I had the afro like that, and so she was like, "Can you play Jimi Hendrix?" They're doing this school film, and you won't have to say anything. You'll just stand in the corner and hold a guitar. It's like a dream sequence where you appear to this dude.
Okay.
So I was like, cool. And then at the same time, around like I think it was around the same time or like later on that year, because I played him, you know, whatever, didn't think nothing about it, kept it moving.
And what was the story? It was just like
I can't tell you. I have it was a short film, and I can't remember. I know I think the kid was like a guitarist, and he, you know, was inspired by Jimmy or something.
Okay.
I don't know. We shot in Baltimore in the middle of the night in the projects. I remember there was white boys running around with starter jackets on, and I was like, "Yo, Baltimore's different."
Yeah,
It was like middle of the night, and all these white boys are running through the projects. I don't know what projects this is. They never showed that shit on The Wire, but it was some. I mean, it might have been like, you know, what's his name? Where the season 2?
By the docks and stuff.
Yeah, because
Ziggy or whatever.
Yeah, Ziggy in there because straight up, dog, it was Ziggy's little brother running around looking dirty and broke, but like starter jackets and no shoes on in the middle of the night. I remember we were up on the rooftop smoking and looking down at these kids like, yo, what is going on?
Oh, you were probably in Amsterdam or Hamsterdam. That's what they called it on the show, remember?
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's probably like what the inspiration for us for that.
I don't know, but that's where we shot this.
And you just shot this short film. You played Jimi Hendrix.
Yes.
And had no real context about what you were doing, how it represented Jimi Hendrix. Now that you know about him.
Like most things in my life, I did it because of women, you know. So
okay.
Yeah,
that's
you know,
fair.
a woman asked me, and yeah. So
okay.
Yeah,
so you did this film.
Did this film, and then either a couple months later or around the same time, because I know I had it my sophomore year when I was at Howard. My uncle Charles, who was like, he is, you know, I feel like I'm him reincarnated sometimes. You know, he gave me the Jimi Hendrix album, the Band of Gypsies album.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Which becomes my favorite Jimmy album and is then, you know, is hugely influential to me just throughout my life. And then...
Now, have you been into rock music before?
Hell yeah, man. I grew up in the suburbs, boy. I
can't
help it.
I had to ask, man, because
I can't help it.
Because every time I bring up, like, rock music growing up, like,
every
black people always look at me like I'm crazy. But I'm like, I grew up in the suburbs.
No, I grew up in the suburbs, bro. And I'm a DJ who's, like, grew up on when hip-hop, when you played everything. You know, so I'm a DJ who plays everything. So I've always loved rock. You know, I grew up, you know, 80s stuff, and then, like, even into the 90s, like Red Hot. I just saw Red Hot last year, and that's one of my favorite shows. Oh, my God. Metallica, you know, the Black Album.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, Nirvana, you know, obviously. Yeah. I remember the first time I saw the Nevermind album. I remember that. You know, that was, like, one of, like, the first time I saw NWA's Straight Outta Compton album. You know, I remember these moments, and I remember seeing that Nirvana, like, yo, what the fuck is that? Yeah. And then, you know, I remember seeing the video for the first time and being like, oh, no, this is different, you know?
That's dope, man. Like, yeah, because, like, growing up, I had eclectic taste as well, but I didn't have confidence to, like, be public about it.
I had no confidence about any of this shit, bro. I grew up like a super geek. Like, we're sitting in the studio with, like, the periodic table of Marvel in front of us. I've never even seen a book, and I could probably tell you everything in it. But I didn't grow up, like, being able to even say, oh, yeah, I know all this nerd shit. You know, all the things I do now. I was a kid who grew up doing all this stuff and just keeping it to myself. It was DJing that made me more confident where I, you know, could be in front of people. And then even to the point of, you know, doing the podcast and everything else I do now where I can really like, oh, okay, this nerd shit is something I can really talk about. You know, all this eclecticness I can really talk about. And there's people who can vibe with it and identify.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what's up, man.
Yeah.
Let's cheers to that.
Cheers to that. Word up. Yeah.
So back to Jimi Hendrix. So you get this album, it changes your life. Like, you're like, holy shit, this is an incredible artist. So do you do a deep dive into Jimmy, or like?
Nah, not even that much at the time. But back to the other thing, like Digital Underground, right? Shot G, rest in peace, is one of my favorite producers, artists ever. Like, when I started growing my afro, I just wanted to have a bigger afro than him in the I Get Around video. I was like, yo, I gotta get that. I dogged him out. You know, it was ugly. And I just love Shock. And on the first Digital Underground album, they have this song, The Way We Swing, where he samples Who Knows off of Jimmy. They don't know what I know. And I always loved that sample, loved that song. So it just came back around, because that's on that Band of Gypsies album. So when I get the album, I'm like, oh shit, this is the shit Shot sampled there. And so it's like, this is always there. So no, I liked, and then I went and listened to Are You Experienced, you know, because that's the album that everybody knows. And I liked it, but
that's all the hits.
But that's the thing. The Band of Gypsies is when he has the two black guys. He has the Buddy Cox. I mean, no, we just went through this. Buddy Miles and Billy Cox. No, Billy. Yeah, I think
Billy
I got
Cox,
that.
I believe.
Yeah, Billy Cox and Buddy Miles.
We already been drinking, so it's
Buddy Miles is the drummer, Billy Cox is the bassist, and that's when he had two black people with him. And so that album is like, that's the one that D'Angelo, George Clinton, all, you know, Shock, all these people talk about as like the album, because that's when he gets funky. That's where, like, I mean, George says that's like the beginning of funk. You know, that's like one of the proto-funk albums. So, yeah.
That's why, like, I was very intrigued when you brought up Jimmy, just because I was like, I didn't know that much about his actual biography, and then in doing research, I'm like, oh, he's had such a huge impact on so many artists. Like, I had no idea he toured with the Isley Brothers. No idea.
What's his name? Little Richard, right?
Little Richard as well. I mean,
different people.
It sounded like he eventually got tired of that, and like
Real
either
quick.
he quit
or got,
got
fired. Probably. Little Richard didn't play. You know, Real Richard was one of them dudes. Like, you gotta be on
What would you pay to be a fly on the wall for like Little Richard and Jimi Hendrix having a conversation about his like punctuality?
Man, it's
professionalism.
All that type of shit. Because Little Richard was like, people don't get it. Richard was one of, you know, he's one of them geniuses of music as well. So, you know, it's like, I remember they talk about how James Brown would fine you if your suit, you know, when you took your suit off, if you didn't hang it up. You know, if you just laid your suit out on the couch, he's fining you.
Wow.
Yeah, you know, like,
I mean, he's crazy, so that makes sense.
but that professionalism leads to, you know, those albums and leads to, you know, the James Brown being James Brown. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, from what I read, it was like he was an incredible artist, but could be pretty difficult to work
Jimmy?
with. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like.
Yeah. It seems that
and that's
way.
before the drug. That's before the drug use got real bad.
And I think that's just a lot of artists, though. You know, a lot of artists are incredibly difficult to work with, because a lot of artists, you know, have incredible self-doubt. They have incredible egos coupled with this self-doubt. So it's a lot of things that are going through their heads. And then when you take someone like him, who comes from absolute nothing, and then turn him into, you know, as I read, I didn't even know this, the highest paid rock star.
I had no idea that either at the time.
Yeah.
In 1970, right?
When we started doing the research for the graphic novel, I saw, like, you know, some of his cars and stuff that he was legendary for. I was like, okay, he was balling, you know.
Yeah, even with the pay cut, he was the highest paid artist for Woodstock. I had no idea. That's crazy. Like, there's like all these little details that you learn, and you're like, oh shit, like he was doing it. And then, of course, because of his childhood trauma and everything like that, he's probably spending it on drugs, alcohol, all that stuff. But that's the torment of an artist. That's why he's part of the notorious 27 Club.
Yes, yep.
Which is the only other fact I really knew about him.
Yeah, it was that he died at 27 like mad other people.
Yeah. Which is wild. But so let's start at the beginning about Jimmy. So he grew up in the 1940s. He was black, Irish, and Cherokee, right? That's why he got, you know, the afro, the way he got the special curls and everything like that. But yeah, his family was parents were crazy. They were always fighting, drinking. Alcohol was prevalent in the household. The brother was in and out of foster care, right? Like,
yep.
It was a lot.
Yeah, and then Jimmy, I mean, had all the problems at home, but still manages to, like, get his hands on a one-string guitar at one point.
Ukulele.
Yeah, ukulele, and starts teaching himself off of one string.
Yep.
Yeah, and then I know learns that, starts, I think that, I mean, before he goes into the Army, he starts playing with people, right?
Yeah, I mean, he took some lessons because, like, he had a teacher that fought for, like, funding for the school, for like, you know, them to like have some musical, like, you know, investments so he could learn a little something. But yeah, he had to go to the Army or because he got in trouble. It's either Army or like juvie.
Yeah, basically, like yeah. And he got in trouble mad times before that.
Are you surprised though? Like that's the thing is like
no, not at all. Because it's like, you know, black people in America, like, you know, who doesn't get in trouble and who doesn't narrowly avoid, you know, prison or jail at some point?
Yeah, because even in the suburbs, I used to get in trouble all the time. Like, and I wouldn't even do shit. Like it was just like because I happened like if I were with a group of kids and two of them did some fucked up shit, because I'm associated, I'm immediately the one that's like, hey, you're the one that's possibly going down for this. Like,
man, it wasn't even like, see, Houston again, and I've told this story on my own podcast. Like, one of my best friends is Jewish to this day. That's my boy Zev. Like, that's my brother. I've known him since like second day of kindergarten. And yeah, no, I mean, we go back. That's my dog, you know. And one night I'm walking with my boy Marcus and some other cats. Marcus, another kid from his house to Zev's house. We're all walking over there. I'm the only black guy. Cop pulls up on us, hops out the car, shines the light on all of us. And it's like, is this guy bothering y'all?
To you?
No, to them.
Oh.
Like,
but talking about you.
Yeah. The one black guy surrounded by white guys.
Y'all all smiling and
We're all smiling.
Probably.
Talking about some Dungeons and Dragons and shit. Like, like some weird nerd shit. Walking, you know, middle of the night. Might have been high. Who knows? And, yeah, is this guy bothering y'all?
Damn, man.
Yeah, Houston's different, fam.
I mean, that's the black experience everywhere. Though. Like, you know, they always think that we in trouble, like we start some shit, we angry.
Yeah.
You know, like I remember like growing up, like people would be like, "Oh, you're probably listening to like NWA or like Tupac or some of that." I'm like, little do you know, I'm listening to Night of the Roxbury soundtrack. Like I'm jamming over here. You know, but that's the thing. But that's what's so cool about Jimi Hendrix is like that he was in a genre that typically you wouldn't see black artists like fully embraced in. Like he made a alley of his own, like in that.
Well, that's the thing about it, right? And that's like, and this is something that we talk about. It's one of the main themes of the graphic novel, but there isn't a genre of music in the world. Well, let's say in America. Let's just keep it simple, right? There's not a genre of American music that was not created by black and brown people. End of story.
Absolutely.
You can run down the line. There's not a one.
You heard that, Elvis fans? Just saying.
The one that I can kind of say is bluegrass, but even bluegrass is just an offshoot of country, which is an offshoot of blues. You know, and country is just straight up white people doing blues. Like, it's the same chords, same keys, same everything. So that's, like, there isn't a genre. So rock in particular, and that's why when you brought this up, because I wanted to do something on some of the house cats, because that's another one that I feel that black people do not get the credit for inventing. You know, black people invented house music in the story. But rock is another one that has been taken from us, where it's like we just are not associated with rock music. When in fact, you know, Little Richard, Jimmy, Prince, down the line, we are the creators of rock music. Jimmy is like the progenitor of like everything that comes from rock music now. Like the electric guitar is him. People still can't do the things he was doing on the guitar, you know, to this day. They can't touch him. And that's one of the things that's also why I think why black people kind of abandon rock and why we do this for a lot of genres is we exhaust them. And then we're kind of like, all right, we're done with that. On to the next. And then there's the other side of it that technology drives genre. Like Jimmy becomes Jimmy because the electric guitar is invented around that time. So because of that, he can take the electric guitar and change the world with it, you know? Just like hip-hop is a direct relation because turntables were there and music was taken out of schools, et cetera. So it leads to these, you know, there's all these factors that lead to the creation of hip-hop. Just like all these factors led to the creation of Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah, I mean, like, what was wild about him working with all these different artists is I think even though, like, it didn't seem like from, like, the research that I read, like, that he had beef with anybody. Like, you know, like even when he got fired, it was like, I still respect you as an artist, like Jimmy, right? And so I think he just took from all these different experiences and created these albums and just really worked on his craft. And that's why he's like this legendary artist that even if you didn't really like him or like you didn't fuck with his work ethic or like his approach to work, you like had to respect him. Like you just had to.
I think that's like that Tupac thing. Like when I read about Tupac, you know, people say the same thing. Like he was possessed. You know, he was just it's studio. You know, women. You know, partying, studio. You know, and it was like constantly, oh, I got to make this music. Yeah. You know, and so he just didn't have time for people who weren't on that page.
Well, that's also because like you know he like a lot of black artists like didn't think that he had much time. You know what I mean?
He saw because he'd seen, you know, Jimmy. Yeah. He'd seen people before him. You know, he knew the history.
Now, do you think Jimmy had that same kind of anxiety though?
I don't know. Yeah. It doesn't seem that way.
Yeah, it's just like the reliance on like the depression medications. It's tough because back then, you know, they weren't treating us. They weren't. If we had depression, anxiety, any of that, like we weren't getting none of that support. Like we barely get it now.
Like some of the main research I did for the graphic novels, I read this one book that was like comprised of his notes, his letters to home, all this type of stuff. So it was, you know, like hearing his story through his words for as much of it as it was. And it was funny how self-deprecating he was, how like little he would think of himself at sometimes. But then, like I said, he
was Irish, bro.
It's that doubt, but then it's also this ego where he would cut other people, you know, to the bone without even really saying anything. Like the funniest one was when he was talking about Eric Clapton one time, and he was like, "Yeah, I really like what Eric Clapton's doing now. He slowed down, you know, and it's like he calmed, you know, he like." Stopped doing all that other shit he was doing and, you know, got some funk in his system, you know? But he was like, yeah, what he was doing before was like, yeah, whatever, dude.
What's wild is like I recently listened to an interview with Chris Rock, and he talked about big ego, low self-esteem, and like how a lot of
that's crazy
black artists like have that. And like it's because you need to have the ego in order to push through all the bullshit in this industry. But then you like have so much self-doubt because there's not many people that look like you that get to those high levels. You know what I mean?
You got to tell me what that's on. I got to hear that because it's funny because I just said that, you know, earlier in the show, and I never really put that two together like that. And I know that is something I suffer from the, you know, I have like if you ask me about stuff that I'm, you know, that I've worked at like DJing, you know, it's not even an ego to me. It's just like, no, I've fucking studied the living life out of this shit and I've worked at it hard. Like, even so, like comedy, you know, like that's something I want to do stand up one day, but I more so just respect it and study it from a technical level where I'm just like, you know, like Richard Pryor's God to me. You know, like every mixtape I ever did at one point had a Richard Pryor sample on it. You know, I used to just study his shit, and then it was like I studied lineage. You know, that's something I'm big on. Like that's something else that's a theme in this book is like how people feed into other people. So I was always like, you know, Red, Richard, Eddie, Chris, Dave, you know, is pretty much how my line went, you know, as the GOAT line, you know, and so I study people, you know, like Dave's like last thing I thought was, and not just because of his, I think he's been doing the, you know, trans joke shit way too much in general, but the last one just wasn't structured. You know, like his normal, where it's just like...
He's just getting in front of a camera now and just...
Yeah, he's just like blah, 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 whatever. And normally he's like, zip, 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 you know, boom, watch that ending, you know? And it's like, oh, shit, now I got to go back to the beginning and see where he started because he hit me over the head with his ending. So it's different.
Yeah, I want to get to the book, though, because you mentioned it a few times. Like, what was the origin behind the graphic novel, how that come about? Like, and then, like, what was the process of putting that together? And, like, how do you feel about the finished product?
Oh, man. All right. Well, it started, Jesus, it's going on like 3 years now, I think. My writing partner is Mellow Brown, Mellow Marketer on Twitter, on Instagram, all that type of stuff. And that's my partner. We worked on American Gods together. We've just been friends for years. We, you know, both came into Hollywood on American Gods together. We became WGA writers together. And he's now...
Shout out to WGA.
Yeah, shout out to WGA. Congratulations. Good to see y'all back. And he's now actually, you know, and saved Station 19 because he's actually a producer on Station 19.
Oh, dope.
Yeah, okay. And so there's a campaign to save that right now because they're facing cancellation.
I mean, Max is cutting everything. You don't need to get into it, but it's crazy.
Everybody's getting cut, so it's like, you know, and that's one of them shows that, you know, just stays on the air. So, but yeah, he's working, we're working, and this came up about 3 years ago when he hit me up like, yo, I got this, because he'd been doing the Blade Runner comic book for Titan Publishing.
Okay.
Yeah, so he wrote Blade Runner Origins, which tells the origin of Blade Runner. He wrote a black Blade Runner as the first Blade Runner. it's fire. It's a fire-ass book. You can
We
pick
the
it up.
first is everything. Like Captain America, like that did not get enough shine with Falcon and Winter Soldier. I know some people like feel mixed about it.
No.
But when they were like the first Captain America was a black, I was like, yo.
And the whole how they, especially the comic that it comes from, the red, white, and black, I think it's called, is so fire because they, it's the Tuskegee experiment done as Captain America. So that was so ill. But yeah, Mello wrote the first Blade Runner as black, and he got huge pushback from the Blade Runner fandom and everything. But now it's canon, so they got to deal with it.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, that's all. That's all part of the story now.
How do you get that approval? Did like Ridley Scott?
Oh yeah, no he.
Sir Ridley Scott? Did he have to? I don't want you to get.
I'm not speaking out of turn on that one because that's not mine. Yeah, shout out to Ridley Scott.
We like Alien. Prometheus.
Yeah, I can say that. But as far as the rest of it, Ridley Scott was involved.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Ridley might have had some other ideas, but this is what's canon now. So. Yeah, so that went through all that process. So he had seen about a few years ago, and he was like, yo, Titan pitched to me. They have this Jimi Hendrix, they have the rights to Jimi Hendrix.
Got it.
And we've debated about this. We're still not 100% sure, but I think they actually had the original pitch was they didn't want to do a standard biography. Yeah. Mm-hmm. They wanted to do something more sci-fi fantasy.
Why does that keep telling the story, but I want to talk about Jimmy's story and why it hasn't been told in a narrative way yet.
Okay.
But continue talking.
It actually has. There's actually another graphic novel that went a little more narratively, told his story a little. I haven't read it, but from what I know, it has.
Okay.
So they pitched us that. And so we were like, okay, cool. So me and Mello went back and we, discussed it. We started throwing ideas back and forth about what we wanted to do, what we wanted to see from the book. And then we have our editor, David, who's his editor at Titan. And we had a meeting we have a Zoom meeting. Our first Zoom meeting was with Jimi Hendrix, who is Jimmy's half-sister and executor of his estate.
Half-sister from father or mother?
Not 100% sure.
Okay.
Yeah, not 100% sure.
I imagine father, because the father's the one that got the custody.
That would probably be it then. Yeah, that would probably be it. So.
It was interesting, like the research I found, like the mom just disappears at some point.
Oh wow!
From what I was reading, because he got custody of him and the brother.
Okay.
The father. Yeah. And so then it's just.
Times were different, and so we have this meeting with Janie, and we pitch her we basically pitch her the whole story we have for the graphic novel, which is basically a 4-act story that we have, and we pitch her this story. I'm trying. I guess I can say that, right? Say that shit. Yeah, go ahead, say that. Well,
I'm about to pour you another drink.
Yeah, do that. Go ahead and do that while I throw myself under this bus. No, the one thing was. I won't say any of the names involved, but the one thing that we were told by David before we got on this call was that they've been working on this project for years, and they had another writer with it, and they got as far as the first phone call, and there was a disagreement, and the writer quit.
Okay.
On the phone call. So he said, just please don't quit during the phone call.
They're like, whatever you do in our working relationship, just don't quit on us
during the phone call. So we did the phone call, and we almost quit right after. No, we almost quit right at no. That was an interesting process, But that's how it is working with any IP.
Yes,
you're going, and then this is the thing. Janie is extremely protective of her brother's image. Everything about him, and that's why we haven't seen a film about Jimmy directly like that, because
what do you think is they're protecting though? Like, because we were talking before we recorded, like there's that 3 stacks. Well, Andre 3000 betrayed Jimi Hendrix, but the movie cheers
again.
The movie doesn't really do much besides just showing you a night in Jimi Hendrix's life.
Yep.
Like, do you think it's the drug use? Do you think it's just that he was kind of a difficult dude, and they don't want to show him in that light. Like,
I think I can even say that, right? Because that's something that really isn't. Yeah, it's something you won't see in our book. Is that one of the stipulations was that we don't really lean into the drug use, and we don't really lean into the women.
I mean, that's like with Bohemian Rhapsody when they didn't really talk about Freddie Mercury's like sexuality. They
didn't. I never seen them.
They touched on it, but it wasn't like as graphic as because Sacha Baron Cohen initially signed up because like I wanted it to be a hard R. I want to be true to like how Freddie was as a rock star, and then they watered it down, and that's why it's PG-13, and like that's why Rami Malek came in.
Oh, where Sacha was supposed to play?
Yeah.
I didn't know nothing about that. Damn, that would have been interesting.
But then the Queen, I guess they were like, we want it to be more family friendly. That's why it's like less about Freddie. It's okay. Like,
I have to try it one.
Like if I were to like that year, like I remember Rami beat out mad people. Like if you're gonna go with a musical performance, like it should have gone to Bradley Cooper for A Star Is Born.
Oh man, I love that movie.
Yeah, but it's like it was a weird year. Like it was a huge hit because of the music. I think, but it's very generic. It's very vital. But like. You know what's wild is Rocket Man was directed by the same dude that did Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah.
Because that guy came in to take over for Bryan Singer, who got fired off.
Yeah, because of everything else.
Yeah, and so Rocket Man is way more ballsy, like it's way better, and it's actually like graphic, like with the sexuality.
Dude
that's
from what's his name?
Taron Egerton. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to see that one too. I don't think
I've seen that. He's really good as Elton.
Okay, I'm gonna speak that.
But let's stop talking about white artists and let's get back to Jimmy.
Yeah, but no, that is directly why we don't like we have these white movies and we don't have a Jimmy movie is because they don't want that, and they feel that's the thing. Like they feel that people would fixate on that, and that's not what makes Jimmy Jimmy, and that's not who Jimmy was as a person, and that's not who Jimmy would want people to remember him by, because a lot of people think, oh, I do drugs and I become this masterful guitar player, and it's not that. Jimmy becomes a masterful guitar player and then does drugs. But he's a masterful guitar player first.
Yeah, because if he wasn't, then he wouldn't have been able. Like, yes, there were some shows, I guess, that like he was real fucked up or they just didn't go well, or whatever. But if he were such a mess, it would have torpedoed his career. He was still.
He would have never had the career if he's not the genius on guitar. It's not. But that's the thing. People think that it's the drugs. Like, oh, I did these drugs, and now I come up with these ideas, and he does all this stuff, and it's like, oh, I'm spaced out. I play this weird shit. No, it's like, no, dude, he was just nice. He put in the 10,000 hours of practice. This guy was a monster. So,
yeah. Now, like when you're putting like sets and stuff together, like, do you like you mentioned like you pull back on drinking a little bit? Did you ever feel like that fueled your creative outlets? Like whether it's putting the graphic novel together, putting together.
I smoke a lot of marijuana, so I can't really. I can't. I use marijuana pretty heavily, so I can't say that. I don't know. I don't know if it fuels or it's just part of life now, where I don't, I did a lot of marijuana while I wrote this book. That's for sure.
Well, I mean, it's called Purple Haze.
Yeah.
That makes
smoked a lot of Purple Haze. So, yeah. No, I don't know. That's an interesting question. I've often thought about that just in terms of my whole life. Like, I'm like, would I be the person I was, like, if I wasn't smoking weed like this, Like, I've had nights where I smoked something and I did some crazy shit, but I'm like, damn, would I done that crazy shit? If I hadn't smoked that night, who knows? It's like, such is life. There's no if, there's only is. So, yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. One of my favorite quotes that I heard while in jail is that if you ever hear if in your life, it's the devil talking.
Okay.
There's no such thing. That's when you hear if, that's just the devil.
Got it. Yeah. Now, you mentioned jail and stuff like that. Like, was that, depending on what you're comfortable talking about, but what was that experience like? What was the catalyst behind that and everything?
I got locked up in Dubai for 2 seeds of marijuana.
In Dubai?
Yeah, everybody in the room jumped. Yeah. In Dubai. Damn. Yep. And ended up doing a year, because Dubai is a zero tolerance state.
Wow.
And it was even crazier than in the mid 2000s when I was there. This was before Futures DJ. This was before any of that shit. Yeah, this is like, I was over there. I was in Ethiopia DJing for a while, and then I went to Dubai because everybody was like, "Oh, you got to go to Dubai. It's so dope." And I was like, "All right, I'll go for a weekend." And then I ended up there for a year. Wow. Shout out to my brother DJ Groove Rider, one of the creators of drum and bass. He was my cellmate for 11 months.
Jeez. What was it like coming back from that?
Weird. You know, there was like, it wasn't like, I was living in D.C. at the time. Everyone in D.C. knew what had happened. It was a very small thing, you know, very small city, if you know D.C. So everybody was like, you know, it was weird. And that's what prompted me kind of move to New York, because I was like, yo, I can't be here. You know, it's like, this felt weird. And it was just weird, man. You know, jail's a weird experience. It's, you know, I mean, not weird. It's like, it's something that I can't really describe. It's very tough to, it wasn't trauma. It's not Oz or any of that type of shit. The trauma comes from just the mental part of it, just dealing with, you know, the loss of freedom. The loss of freedom is what I tell people is impossible to understand until it happens to you. It is something that is so weird, you know, not being able to do what you want to do. One of the same dudes who told me that line about the devil's the if one day says to me, we're listening to the radio, and he was like, yo, Ben, you know what it should be like when you can just hear a song? When you just want to hear a song, you can just hear it right then? I was like, yo, that's crazy, because right now we listen to what the radio plays, and that's it.
You can't.
That's it. There's no other.
As a DJ, that must have drove you crazy. Like,
it was interesting.
That must have been nuts.
That was the very first thing when I got home. I went to turntables. The very first.
What was the first song you played when you got home?
Fuck, I can't remember. I just wanted to scratch. That was it. I just wanted to hear that, you know, sound and feel that sound and feel vinyl in my hands. Jeez, I can't remember.
That's how you know you're a true musician.
That was the very first thing I did, bro. Like, as soon as I came home, I went to eat and then went to my man's crib and went to his turntables.
Yeah. Wasn't Jimmy almost went to prison, and he had like anxiety about getting sentenced and everything like that.
Yeah. And then, like I say, it's so many things that we relate. Like his obsession with science fiction and stuff was something that we were, you know, that we both have in common. His blackness, and that's something that we really wanted to talk about in the book. That was like one of our main goals when we wrote the book, was to talk about that, was how black he was. And that was something like when we were just talking about what he'd want to be remembered by, what I think he'd want to be remembered by, and what I think one of the things that got us the deal to write the book was, I told Janie when we first met, I was like, look, let me tell you like this. I grew up on Prince. Prince is God to me. You know, like, that is like, Adore is the greatest song ever written. I can sit here and talk about him for all day and night, you know, but it's either Prince or Jimmy as the number one and number two guitarist of all time. Okay. I don't care what order you put them in, but you better say those two first. And that's what I told her. And I was like, that's what I want to establish with this book. I want to establish that Jimmy is that black rock god, and I want to get all the iconography of like white, like the shit you see on the side of a van, you know, the black light posters, shit, you know, like everything that you associate the heavy metal hair out with dragons flying around and shit, like I want that imagery to be associated with Jimmy. And I want the idea of rock and roll to be associated with Jimmy, and the idea of blackness to be associated with Jimmy. And that's what we wanted to do for this book.
What was the most challenging part about putting the book together? Just cackled.
Let me drink again.
No worries, but I'll share a drink with you.
Definitely, just dealing with... This was my first time. Like I said, I wrote on American Gods, but that's not really like an IP. I mean, it's an IP, but
it's based off a book, right?
Yeah, it's based off a book.
Yeah,
it was different. You know, we had different issues in that writing room. We didn't have like, I guess we did. Yeah, because we did. We definitely did. What am I saying? We went away from the book. You know, in our proposed season 2, we were definitely going off book heavy. We were disregarding a lot of the book. With good reason, whatever. You know, shout outs to Anyway, so with this it was more like I was saying, there was this, okay, we had to make sure that Janie understands what we're doing.
Okay.
And communicating to her and letting her know that we knew what we were doing. I take it to like kind of how it's different, but yeah, that was the main thing.
And what was it like? I have no idea, you know, her experience or anything like that in regards to the creative world, but what was it like trying to break that down for someone that maybe isn't in the creative space? You know what I mean? Like, how do you, especially because it's like a sci-fi, it's a graphic novel story. Like, how do you help them visualize what you're trying to accomplish with the work?
I think she's a fan of sci-fi and stuff like that. Okay. So I think that helped. But Janie's definitely older. So Janie comes from a different generation. So she had different, like, that was one thing we definitely had a little bit of conflict with, was like, she was like, I want the characterization to be more like this type of comic book, from the past. And I was like, I've read all those comics. I grew up reading those. They were old then, but I read all those. But I'm not writing like that. We write, I read modern comics. I'm going to write from a very modern perspective. And it was things like that. And then, like she said, she's very concerned with the portrayal of her brother's image. And I can understand it, but it becomes difficult at points.
Sure.
And there was like even the cover of our graphic novel that you can see now went through a major change that I didn't understand when they did it. Why she was so adamant about it. And then in retrospect, I get it, and I can say it because basically they didn't want him to appear not alive. They want him to, still appear alive in the imagery, full of life, I would say.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
An image was more just his eyes were closed, and it's like he's playing the guitar with his eyes closed.
Oh, okay.
But they're just like,
they didn't
no.
want the symbol, like the...
Yeah, his eyes closed, why his eyes closed. When I heard it, I was like, okay. But, then I get it.
That's probably a sensitive thing, too.
Yeah, and then I get it, and it's like, okay, I get it. And that, that means a lot. And so...
It's a weird note, but like...
It's a weird note, but then, in retrospect, I understood it. And that was the thing. Like, when we did it in, like I said, it was 4 acts. So we did it in, acts. Like, we wrote the first act. We'd submit it. We'd talk with them. We'd get notes. We'd have a talk. We'd respond to the notes. We'd submit a rewrite. Me and probably 2 or 3 rewrites for Act 1. For Act 1 and 2, it was probably 2 or 3 rewrites. Then by Act 3, they were pretty much like, oh, these kids know what they're doing.
Got it.
They're not playing. They said they were going to do this, and they're doing it.
Yep.
And so that was like, and then I even knew we did it when I let people read it, and they read it, and I'd written the first 3 at that point, and they came back to me, and they were like, where the fuck is part 4?
That's a dope feeling, right?
It was
That's a dope feeling when you send something to somebody, like, to get feedback, and you're like, I just hope they like it. And not only do they like it, they're like, where's the next
They
one?
were
like,
so tight.
Next? Yeah, that's dope.
And they were worried about how I would wrap it up. And then when I gave them part 4, they were like, wow, you wrapped it up, and you answered the questions I had, and like that anticipation I had from reading part 3, you answered in part 4.
Yeah. You pulled off a Harry Potter at Deathly Hallows, bro.
Bro, I'm like, this thing, I haven't put out much writing, like I said, I have a children's book, and I've written on American Gods, I've done a lot of poetry, and, various shit. People know, people
You're eclectic, man. That's why I appreciate, like, the work you do, man. Like, you about it, man. You do the work.
I do my best to do it. That's my thing. I do, like I said, I do my best to study things, and comic books are something I've read all my life, but it's hard for me. Like, I'm that big ego, low self-confidence person. Like, it's so hard for me. Like, and my boy just sent me this mixtape I did years ago, and then all my boys in the group chat were like, yo, that shit was so fire, bro. Yeah. And, man, I agonize over that shit. I agonize over every goddamn mixtape I've ever done in my life.
Do you hate compliments, too?
Not as much.
Or are you just thinking about the work? You're just like, oh, man, but they ain't, you're like, that's not.
Yeah,
like, I appreciate y'all liking it and, like, praising it, but, like, you're like, that's not. I could have done better.
Like, another one, like, over the last year or so, I started producing music. Like, producing house music and stuff. And people would be like, yo, this shit's fire, And like recently I was with my boy DJ Analyzes, my brother. I was playing him, a few of my tracks, and then I was playing him this dude, Timmy Regisford. And Timmy's a legend. He was a god in house. And he was like, yo, your shit sounds as good as his, bro.
Wow.
And I was like, shut the fuck up, bro. Like, what do you, fuck out of here,
Yeah.
And I know this stuff is good, but that, it's like, this is the guy, this is one of my idols, and I'm just trying to make some music, and that's how I look at it. But at the same time, I know I don't sleep. I'm up till 3 in the fucking morning, 5 in the morning, working on these joints, I know I studied music all my life, you know, same thing. So with the Hendrix book, it's the anticipation to have people read it is so, like I say, those people who have read it, and that gives me a lot of hope and a lot of, you know, but yeah, I'm shook, you know, as far as like the general public reading it, and like people like my brother Joe Illidge, who's a, you know, comics, you know, he's been working in the industry, you know, I don't know, I think he just celebrated 30 plus years in it. So people like him, you know, and then through my podcast, I'm friends with a lot of creators, you know, like Kieran Gillen, who wrote Wicked and Divine and a bunch of other books that I love, X-Men right now. He's doing Immortal X-Men right now. That's my, you know, and we become like good friends, but he's an idol of mine. I've told him many a times, you know, Wicked and Divine is a big influence on this Hendrix book. Like, I literally stole shit. And so it's to be, he's going to read it, you know, and that type of shit is weird to me.
Yeah, man. It's hard when you, like, meet your heroes and you, like, trying to, like, you have such a big impact. Like right now, like, we got this, my boy Chris Bryant, shout out to Chris, we got this animated pilot that we're going to be sending out. And one of the people we're sending out is like, literally, like, one of my comic book idols. Like, I'll tell you offline.
Okay.
And I'm just like, bro, like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, oh, he wants to read it. I'm like, that's insane, you know. And so that's dope that, like, you're doing that. Like, you're taking this artist that's so important to the culture, that's so important to music in general, and you're, like, elevating him to a new level. And what do you want the key takeaway for people when they read this graphic novel to be?
Oh man, thank you for asking that. The main thing that I really want to take away, and like me and Mello were talking about this right before the show, is that how black Jimi Hendrix was, and how black he is. And I can give this away. One of the main themes of the book is this idea I've had for all my life, and that it's not me. It's really something that, you know, just something that exists, and I've just observed. Is the river of black music. Is the idea that, you know, black music is one. I don't really believe in genre. I think genre is something that's created by people to separate, because people need to separate things and classify things so that way they can say this is rock, and now white people do rock and black people don't do that anymore, you know, and this is jazz, and now white people do jazz, and we made Whiplash, and we know all about jazz. Whiplash fucking sucks. It's a great movie, but it knows nothing about jazz.
That's everyone that's musically inclined tells me that. I love Whiplash as a movie.
I love it as a movie.
But yeah,
it knows absolutely.
And then it got worse with La La Land.
I didn't even want to. I won't see La La Land because I was so mad at dude over Whiplash.
I was such a dick to this white woman the other day. She was like, La La Land is like my favorite movie.
Oh my God, I would have barked on her.
Yo, I said, it was like, my immediate response to her when she was like, La La Land is my favorite movie. I'm like, Lost in Moonlight. Just reminding you. Just reminding you that, you know, Best Picture got fucked up, but Moonlight took it.
I would have barked on it. And on that note, for everyone out there, it's not available in America yet, but and it didn't get nominated. Yeah. It was up for it, but it didn't get the nod for the Oscars. Blue Giant is this animated film from Japan. It's an anime about jazz. It came out this year. Fucking hell, it's like in my top. I don't know. It might be my favorite film of the year. It's
wow. Damn.
It's Battling Spider-Verse, dog. It's stupid.
I'm always going to stand up for Spider-Verse. I was so mad when it didn't get enough noms. But
I mean, it's nominated for the Oscar. It
is for best animated feature, but it should have been best picture,
film. It
best score,
that's
best visual effects.
That's how I feel about Blue Giant, bro. I'm
gonna check it out.
And it takes a second. Because it's like about 30 minutes into it is when it's going to fuck you up, and that's when it's like, it's over. You know.
But what's wild is about that, because I thought you were about to pitch the graphic novel.
Okay.
I was like, oh, you about to promote the novel? Man, you know, like, tell the people.
Let me get back to that, right?
When it's going to be available.
Okay, yeah. So we were getting back. I'm sorry, I got distracted. We were talking about the river of music, and that's one of the main things that I want people to take away from it is the fact that black people in America have created pretty much every form of music that is known, and we create these forms of music. We do it almost like subconsciously. It's just second nature to us. Yeah. And then we create them and pass it on, and we keep moving. So I want to really talk about that and show the legacy and not only the past but the future, and how Jimmy is an integral part of that. Like, he is a part of this river, and he is such an important part of American musical history, and to recognize how black Jimmy is and how black rock music is. Because like another big thing that we haven't brought up, we talked about Little Richard, but how B.B. King was, another cat who rolled with Jimmy and taught him some stuff when he was younger. That's a big part of our book.
That must have been such a cool thing.
Man,
B.B. King and Jimi Hendrix.
I saw B.B. King. Speaking of that, he played when I DJ'd at Love Nightclub in D.C. Like we were talking about that off air. Yeah, wow. B.B. King. I got to see that motherfucker live. Like it was, up there with Lucille.
I went to B.B. King's place on Times Square. I just saw Fleetwood Mac cover band.
Yeah, I saw BB up there with Lucille. Boy, it was something.
Oh, shit, fuck.
Yeah, I mean, he played. Like,
that's what he played.
Yeah, he played. Yeah. He walked out there.
Where is Lucille these days? Like, is it in a museum or
it
something?
It probably is in the and oh my God, For All Nerds, we got to speak at the Blacksonian at the NMHAAC, the National Museum of History and Art and Culture.
Oh, it's in there.
And
it has to be.
The music floor. I mean, that museum is the greatest thing I've ever been in. Yeah. But the music floor alone, I could spend so much time in it. They have so much Hendrix. They have so much shit. And the floor talks about what I was talking about. Like even I was talking to the director, one of the directors, and he's like, the dude who does the music wants to change the layout so there's no more genre in here. So it's not rock over here. So it's not this over here. So it's just all one thing. Because that's how black music is. This one river. It's technology that makes the changes. Like we talked about earlier. It's like Jimmy had an electric guitar, so that makes the changes. Hip hop is determined by this. We played blues guitar because we had 3 notes out. The 3 strings. Yeah. Like that was what blues was. Those those chords. It's like with 3 chords that make up the majority of blues music because that was it. And then, you get a 6-string guitar, you can do this. You get this, you can do this. You get this, you get, overdubs. That, that becomes reggae and dub music. All the technology and circumstance and history and time drive genre more than anything else.
So, speaking of which, like, things we haven't talked about yet, like, we didn't even talk about Jimmy with the flaming guitar.
Oh, and that's a big part of our book.
And how he was inspired by the Who. Like, it's like, how can we do some shit like that? And it's like, well, you could light your guitar on fire. Like, didn't his manager pitch that? Like, you could, and they're like, get him some gasoline.
And that's the thing. And it's like,
and then timing, photo taken, becomes an iconic picture.
And it's like, it's kind of like the thing where it's like social media can make a superstar, before they're ready. Yeah. And Jimmy was ready for the moment. Yeah. And it was planned. Like you see it. Like the manager's like, nah, we gotta do something like the Who out here breaking guitars. What can we do to top that? Like, I saw it in the research where he's like, well, it's not shame you can't light your guitar on fire. And Jimmy's like, shit, light that bitch on fire. Yep. But then that becomes the thing where they keep asking him to light the guitar on fire. And it's like, come on, you do that shit where you light your guitar on fire. And then people think that's all Jimmy was lighting the guitar on fire, or playing with his teeth. Instead of
that's crazy.
Being a beast, it's some ill trick shit.
That's how you know someone spends that night and day with this instrument.
Yes,
to be able to do that.
Yeah, it's sick. I saw Wyclef do that once. It's some sick shit.
Like, and that's that. Honest question for you: If he hadn't died at age 27, if Jimmy was still around now, do you think he would still be regarded as the best guitar player of all time? Do you think he would still have like the legendary status that he has if he hadn't died so young?
The problem is I don't think he's regarded as that right now, and that's one of the things we wanted to really talk about and fight for in this book and bring back to the public. And I can't wait for this book to come out because it's going to bring him back into the public eye in general, and people are going to be talking about his music and hearing his music again. Because I don't think he's regarded as that. I always hear arguments for this white boy or that white boy, buckethead, and this motherfucker and this motherfucker and. It's like,
really? Okay.
Yeah, it's like, I've seen, Rolling Stone will always put out their nonsense list, and they will put out, I think they had Jimmy at number 1 the last time. Yeah. I think,
As of 2023, he was number 1.
Okay, I pray, because,
like a lot of people discount Rolling Stone now because of, I forgot the editor or whatever the fuck.
Oh, yeah, and any other list they put out is some nonsense. So, I mean, but I pray it's just like how I feel about Prince. Prince, normally, people don't even talk about his guitar playing.
That's crazy.
And it's like,
that's crazy.
What? Like, have you heard the intro to, like, when doves cry? That, it's like, nobody's doing that shit. No. That's just impossible. Like,
well, I don't even, like, there's some stuff like Jimmy, Prince, like there's so many artists where I'm like, how do you even like have the brain to think of these sounds coming together, let alone the lyrics you put together on this shit? Like, that's what's always impressed me about musicians, and that's why I was like so excited when you brought up Jimi Hendrix, because I'm like, let me actually do a deep dive into this guy.
Man, I tell everybody, like, go listen to the Band of Gypsies album, especially, because not enough people know that album, and that's when it's like he gets really black and really funky, you know, because people know him as, you know, like the Light My Fire and all that stuff, and it's like that rock, you know, the baby, light my, you know, people all, you know, do all that.
That's the white people.
Yeah, but when you hear like they don't know, you know what I know, and them jump, that shit is like
that whiskey's kicking
in. Yeah, that shit hard, boy.
There we go, baby. We get a live concert right now.
Oh man, no, that's the one. But yeah, like I would say that's the thing that I really want people to take away from this book is that, you know, how black Jimmy is and how, you know, black his music is and how big of an influence he was and how he was influenced by those who come before him and then how he influences those who come after him.
That's incredible. And so tell people, like, when it's coming out, like, when they can get their hands on it or eyes on it, like.
God willing, you know. Let me check the date.
Like, let me check my email. See what the publisher said.
Let me check with the last thing. Okay, July 30th, 2024. This year, July 30th. Jimi Hendrix, Purple Haze, the original graphic novel from Titan Publishing. You can go to Titan's website and order it. Or I really encourage people to go to their local comic book store and order it, or your local bookstore and order it there. Because, you know, Amazon and them got more than enough money as already. Titans didn't get the money wherever you buy it from, but support your local comic book shop. It's written by me, DJ BenHaMeen, and my brother Mello Brown, and it has art by, and I have not even got to mention this man's name yet, and this is so important. The art is done by Tom Mandrake, right? And Tom Mandrake is a cat who's been working forever in the game, and when I grew up a Marvel head. You know, a heavy Marvel head. So during the like 80s, 90s and stuff, he was pretty much strictly DC. So when they tell us, we got Tom Mandrake doing the book, you know, because he was on the book before we came on the book.
Yeah.
So they're like, we have this artist, Tom Mandrake, and they showed me this picture he done of Jimmy. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's cool. He's dope. You know, he's a dope little artist, you know. And they're like, oh, he's a white guy. I'm like, ah, damn, we got a white dude doing this, you know. But like, you know, Tom's been on the book, you know, he could do it. So then I started looking up some of his stuff. And I'm like, oh, damn, this motherfucker can really, you know, draw. Like, this motherfucker, like, he's a classical artist. Like, people who know comments like Neil Adams, School of Thought, like, a very classical, like, everything. He's going to draw you the background. I mean, it's some sick shit this man's going to give you. So I'm like, okay, he can really do it. And then I get on the phone with him. We have a Zoom call. We just vibe immediately. One of our first things was like, I don't want to see any little squiggly musical notes in the art. That's what I told him, you know. I was like, that's just corny. He was like, thank God you're saying that because I don't want to see any strictly musical notes in this art either. So we started vibing. I started looking up some of his work. He had this book. He was doing The Spectre back in the day, and he has this splash page, which was like, one of the front pages in the comic book, and it was all these black people on it. And it was like they were in the hood. But it's the 90s, so they had flat tops. Dude had the Gumby. Dude had the, you know, 2 parts, you know, the noses were big, the lips, but not caricature, but like everyone was individually black. And I was like, oh, this white boy is on it. So
you think he went to the hood like the white dude from that Atlanta episode?
I've never talked about I've never asked Tom about that, but that was something I didn't have to ask. You know, that was I was like, because I was thinking when they said a white dude, I was like, oh fuck, I might have to be like, look, man, we need this shit to be black as fuck. And I was like, okay, I don't have to tell him that. You know, I'm like, everybody's going to be black like they need to be. So, you know, we got that through. And then, so the more I learn about him, whatever, I'm going around, you know, I start writing a book, and I start telling people about it. I'm like, yo, Tom Mandrake's doing the art. Anyone who's involved in comics, when I'm like, Tom Mandrake is doing their art, their eyes fall out of their head, their jaw drops to the floor. Come to find out, Tom Mandrake is not, I mean, I'm like, oh, he's great. No, this man's a fucking legend. Yeah. Like, he's worked with everyone in the game. He's done everything you can imagine. You know, he's Hall of Fame cat. End of story. So this is something else I've never experienced. I've never experienced getting pages back. When you write a story and then someone sends you the art of your pages. Dog. I tell people, right, the opening, there's a 2-page spread in the first, it goes 1 page and then it opens to this 2-page spread. That 2-page spread is worth the price of admission, worth the whole book. It's worth 10 times this book. I can tell stories off of that 2-page spread for the rest of my life if I wanted.
Amazing.
It's so much story. And I told Tom, I'll tell people what it is. I told Tom, Jimi Hendrix is performing at an intergalactic concert. I think there might be one or more lines of description. Yeah, because I don't want to say what's going on in it, but I told people it's something of what's, a little something about what's going on. And then this motherfucker just creates this world. And it's just like, it is that, I'm telling you, I've looked at this 2-page spread so much. So there's so many little details in it. And that's like every page. And people who I've shown it to, and Tom himself is like, I put some of my best into this. Like, he was, like, that was another moment where I'm like, oh, we got some shit. When he was like, yeah, I'm really inspired by what you guys are writing. And I'm looking down the line of the authors he's written and, drawn for, and it's everyone that I've ever admired. So when he's like, no, I'm fucking with what y'all writing, I'm like, when we, this can't be that bad. Yeah. This is something. And then that's something, like, really, I could have written some shit, and this art would carry me all the way. So, like,
but that's dope, man.
You could buy this book for his art, and you're good.
But that's dope that he, like, appreciates the work that you did, and I hope that you, we talked about big ego, low self-esteem. I hope you understand that you deserve that.
Thank you.
You deserve that praise. You deserve the praise that's going to be coming to you once this comes out. Folks, please check out this graphic novel, Purple Haze.
Jimi Hendrix, Purple Haze from Titan Publishing.
Congratulations. Can't wait for it to come out. Can't wait for people to see it. Please tell people how they can follow you, keep up with what you're doing.
All right, word. I'm on Instagram.
I know we've had a few drinks.
All social media, you can follow me at DJ BenHaMeen. That's DJBenHaMeen. You can also follow my podcast at For All Nerds. That's FORALL Nerds, NERDS. Yeah, I had to think about that one. For All Nerds, we talk about geek and pop culture from the perspective of people of color.
Shout out to Tatiana.
Shout out to Tatiana King, my co-host. Shout out to Chico Leo, my original other partner. And Jamie Rigetti, even the original Fantastic Four. And as always, like we always do, rest in peace. Shout out to my brother and mentor and, just the man who changed my life in ways I'll never be able to repay him for, Combat Jack Reggie Osei, who, I was the original DJ for the Combat Jack show, and he's the one who helped found the For All Nerds show, and so, all praise to him. And, you can follow For All Nerds on all platforms. You can follow DJ BenHaMeen on all platforms. I'm on Twitch. I'm on Twitter. I'm really loving Threads and Instagram, of course.
Yeah. That's where I'm at, too. Y'all can follow me at Frodo_Blackens, and I'm both Threads and Instagram. Yeah, I had to embrace
that one. Frodo Blackens,
baby. Yeah.
Blackens or Blackens?
Short King 2024, baby. You know what I mean? And you can follow the show at Official Drunk Black History on Instagram and Threads as well.
Did you see the Short King thing on SNL this week?
No.
Oh, God.
I don't want to. I embrace Short King, but I don't need the other motherfuckers to tell me how to embrace Short King. Okay?
They don't.
But if you're watching on YouTube, push that subscribe button so you get alerted about all future episodes we have. And again, if you're in New York City, or if you're not, you can join us on live stream Saturday, February 10th for our live show, Drunk Black History at Caveat NYC, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Can you come through after? We're going to be hanging.
What time y'all go to?
7 p.m. show, but it's going to go till 9. I mean, it's kind of early.
Yeah, no.
We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
I'll be there one way or the other.
Again, Saturday, February 10th, live show, Drunk Black History.
Nice.
Come through in NYC, Caveat NYC. Tickets are available at drunkblackhistory.com. DJ BenHaMeen, thank you so much for joining me tonight.
No, man.
Hope you get home safe.
Yeah, no, I'm taking a lift. This is, thank you so much. This is really amazing. I'm, honored to be your inaugural guest.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
This is a long time coming. I was excited to have you on. I'm excited when you agreed to it. I was more excited when you said you want to talk about Jimi Hendrix, because it's wild for me, because I have immediate things I know about him, which is that he's a great guitar player, that he was legendary in the rock genre. He was a legendary black artist, and he died at 27. He died very young. And it's dig deeper into his soul, his approach to work wasn't for everybody, and just like the work that you've done on behalf of like his story, everything it just made sense.
Yeah, like I said, I just want people to remember, you know, how black he was, how weird and how nerdy he was, and how that was like such a part of his persona, and how that went into his music, and how I think, you know, more people should just embrace that, and like just him being himself, you know, and he was really about, yo, I'm going to be this, I'm going to make this type of music, I really don't care what other people think, this is my life. And that's something that I've, you know, been realizing a lot lately, is like, you know, and something I've always done, but it's like I've been more about, it's like, yo, this is the only life you live. Just do what, you know, makes you happy, do what you love, as long as it's not hurting anybody else, do that shit. And that's what I feel like he really did. I mean, he definitely, you know, lived fast and died young, but, you know, the impact is still there.
Fully subscribe to that, bro.
Yep.
Cheers.
I want to live a long life, though, you know, for real.
Yep. Thank you, everybody. Hey, everybody. Just want to shout out LV Pro Film House for letting us use their studio for Drunk Black History. Incredibly thankful for them. Please be sure to follow LaVarro Pro on Instagram for show dates. He's got some shows coming up. Check him out. And again, thank you at LV Pro Film House for letting us use the studio for Drunk Black History. Talk to y'all soon. Peace.
C1, take 3.